The last 3 years have forced us to think hard about the policies and programs we need in order to make work better for more people. By paying attention to what makes a difference and then pushing for it, these three women won wider opportunities and better benefits at their companies. Myra Orndorff, a senior manager at Capital One, campaigned for more part-time tech jobs after she went part-time herself as a way to stay in the workforce while raising 4 kids. Becky Gunther persuaded Raymond, the advisory firm where she leads compensation and benefits, to give its employees free maternity support, elder care, and mental health counseling. And Stephanie LeBlanc, who leads Google's global programming for women of color, launched an annual summit that's furthered the company's retention and professional development goals. What can we learn from their success? And how can you follow their lead? I've got a million questions. And if you have a question about how they achieved what they did and how to replicate their success, type it into Ask the Speaker. In the last 15 minutes of the session, I'll direct some of those questions to them. Welcome, Stephanie, Myra, and Becky.
Hello.
Great to be here today.
Hi, everyone.
Great to see you. Myra, let's start with you. Back in 2020, you were struggling to meet the demands of your job in analytics while raising 4 kids. So your boss at Capital One turned your full-time job into a part-time one. The reason you're with us today is that you campaigned to turn that special exception, turning the full-time job into the part-time one, into a benefit available to more employees. Today, Capital One's technology department has 5 teams made up of 26 employees who all work between 20 and 32 hours a week. So let's go back to the beginning. Why was it important for you to turn that special exception into more of a rule?
Well, I knew that I wasn't alone. I knew that I had friends and coworkers who could relate with my need. And I was also spending time helping our tech organization with analysis on talent challenges. And so I was familiar with all the statistics about how many people in the workforce really had the appetite to cut back. So I thought, hey, if I have this need and if this will help me stay in the workforce, we really need to build it and make it more readily available for everyone.
So then talk about the kinds of benefits that you've seen both personally for employees and for the organization with this benefit.
So when I first went part-time, I was shocked that it was even a possibility. It was just such a foreign concept. And it was a little bit challenging at first to figure out, how do I exist as a part-timer when everyone else is working 40 hours a week? So I'm sorry, could you repeat your question? I was getting caught up in my own story.
Oh no, I do that all the time. How has this change, this new benefit, helped you? How's it helped the employees, and how's it helped the company? It's a 3-part question.
Yeah. So personally, I really fell in love with the model because I felt just so grateful to be able to stay in my career and so empowered to prioritize in a way that I probably should have been doing all along in my own career. And prioritizing and doing the most important things and just getting that satisfaction out of work, but still having some emotional energy left for my family. And so as we launched the program, we have seen that associates in the program experience those same benefits. So our scores on surveys compare well across the board. Not only do part-time employees feel a higher sense of well-being and lower burnout, but they also feel more excited when they come to work and more focused and have just better productivity. And so these employees also have higher intent to stay with the company, which of course leaders really love to see.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I noticed that Capital One chose to make teams entirely composed of part-time employees rather than mixing together part-time and full-time. What's going on there? Why are they doing that?
That idea stemmed from my own experiences of being an only. And I think that happens not only when you're an only part timer, but also anytime you're an only, there's challenges. And so we initially started with the whole teams of part time roles to provide peers for mutual support and also to kind of elevate the challenges, the potential challenges that the individuals would face, make sure that those were elevated and visible to their managers and leaders. But moving forward, we definitely don't think that part-time roles should only be in entirely part-time teams, and we're absolutely looking to expand now into freestanding roles.
So it sounds as if the part-time role has become accepted and embraced and more mainstream. Is that right?
Well, we're getting there. I have to be honest. I thought that once we tried this and I made a few presentations about the results, that everyone everywhere would start creating tons of part-time jobs. But most of these roles were created by senior leaders of pretty large organizations that saw the business case and got excited about it. But in conversations with individual hiring managers, I've realized that most job openings come because an individual manager of maybe a team of 5 has someone leave, move on to another opportunity, and they have one open headcount. And so it's hard, despite the metrics and the great business case, for that individual team, that individual manager to say, hey, let me replace this full-time position with a part-time position, because they feel like they'd be giving up capacity. And I can understand that. So we're, still in the midst of this journey. But I'm optimistic that maybe the solution is something as simple as just starting to embrace the decimal point. If a hiring manager is given a headcount target of 5.6, then they're probably going to create a part-time position. So yeah, we're in the midst of that journey, but my takeaway is to always, no matter how much you think your business case is a no-brainer, prioritize working through the use case with the people on the ground that on a day-to-day basis are going to be implementing and scaling what you're driving.
Okay, I want a t-shirt that says embrace the decimal point. Okay. So just talk us through how you made this happen. Where'd you start? How'd you make the case? Talk about that.
Okay. So, I was terrified because I knew that I was proposing something that was just totally not done. And in some people's eyes, it's just no big deal. This is a small change. But in other people's eyes, it's like, this is a really different way of doing business and managing a workforce. So I was asking for very small things. I was emailing and giving a very brief summary of the idea and just asking for a meeting to discuss the idea. With my own leadership chain, I just shared the idea and said, are you comfortable with me spending a little bit of time, developing this business case? And who else should I talk to? And what do you think I should include in the business case? And then I started cold calling executives across the company and just really trying over and over again to share the idea. Capital One, fortunately, is a place that really loves new ideas and wants new ideas, and is willing to try new things. So we formed a coalition once I found a couple of senior leaders that were really interested in giving it a try. We started just bringing people together and partners and other leaders, and found organizations and leaders that were willing to try it within their own teams. We didn't have a centralized budget to say, hey, here, this program will pay for all these new part-time teams. We had to have leaders that were willing to use their own labor budgets to try something new. So they, tried it. We said, hey, this is how we're going to decide if this is a success or not, how we're going to measure things. And now, we're about a year and a half into it, and things are going really well. And we're just trying to figure out how to grow it, improve it, and influence the rest of corporate America as well.
And so was it smooth sailing? Did you meet any resistance?
Definitely not smooth sailing. I always think about this, how much emotional energy it takes to drive change. I mean, by definition, when you're driving change, you're going to be swimming against a current. And there's so many forces that push us and pull us in so many directions. So it's hard creating momentum in the direction that you want to go. But I manage this in a couple of different ways. I try to build in recovery time for myself when I know I have like a tough meeting coming up or uh, an event where I'm speaking and I'm nervous. For this event, I have an hour after this event until my kids come home, and I am not going to spend that hour checking emails or knocking out additional tasks. I am going to give myself some recovery time to walk, pray, process, think about future ideas. And then I also try to play my whole movie. So our brains are so negatively biased, and we have a recency bias, and it's so easy to let our brains replay things that haven't gone how we wanted. And with the ups and downs of the journey, I have really found it to be helpful to think about the importance of the destination that I'm driving to, the progress that has happened, and then also not just this journey, but also my entire, life story. Like, hey, if I'm living with intention, and I should find satisfaction in that and not try to seek it in just those individual moments or milestones.
I love that notion of playing your whole movie. Stephanie, I'd love to ask you a few questions. You helped launch Google's Summit for Women of Color, and it has become a central part of the company's retention and development strategies. So can you talk a little bit about how this has actually helped women of color and Google, this summit that you've organized?
Sure. So the backstory of how this actually all got started, we had our first and largest gathering of Black women at Google in 2018. And that came out of, or was rather, the brainchild of Melanie Parker, who's our Chief Diversity Officer, and Felicia Butterfield Jones, who's our VP of Partnership and Engagement. And I likened myself to the doula that created this beautiful and meaningful space for this community to gather. And it was based on data, so both qualitative and quantitative data that said that Black women were having a disparate experience from the rest of the Google employee base. And so, given that, that gave us a moment for action to bring together the community so that they can see, feel, hear one another, and have this moment. And it's since grown and expanded to include women of color, where we have a yearly gathering, albeit now it's virtual. We're still in that space here in 2023, but virtual gatherings for women to experience community development, a signal from the company that we are dedicated to investing in them.
So you said that this started in 2018. Excuse me. Set the scene for us. What was going on at the time that prompted you and your colleagues to launch this event?
Sure. So Google does two things. One is launch a publicly diversity annual report. And that is a report. We actually just launched our 10th edition of that about a week or so ago. And it gives data around our hiring, representation, attrition numbers across a number of demographics, as well as these qualitative stories around the work that we're doing, the moment that we're in. And so in 2018, like I said, there was data that showed that there was this disparate experience for Black women. And so the idea behind that was, okay, we need to do something to signal to this community that that we hear and we see the feedback that we've gotten for them. We know what the numbers look like, and that we want to invest in making a difference for them.
So before I ask you a next question, I just want to remind our audience to post their questions in the box that we keep pointing to. Um, you keep talking about data, and that's no surprise. This is Google after all. But what can our audience members take from this? What if they don't work at organizations with the kind of data generating and gathering muscle that Google has? What can they do that has the rigor of that data-driven approach that you used?
Yeah, I think one, there are so many organizations like HBR that puts out survey results, reports, various studies that give a general sense of where differing communities stand, what the state of the union is for those communities. So I think that's one body of work that can inform the way in which companies show up for their employees. And then two, employees will share how they feel and the experiences that they have if they're asked, and if they feel like what they say will be acted upon. And so, what I would say to organizations is, if you want to go down this space where you really want to invest in your employees and make change based on what they are feeling, based on culture of the organization that they're in, one, believe them when they share their
Mhm.
experiences. Don't look for the way out or to explain it away. Believe the experiences that they share and really stick to a commitment to making change based on what you've heard.
So I'm very struck that this is an event, and a lot of organizations would regard an event as a kind of nice to have, but not an essential part of a DEI strategy or a talent development strategy. How did you win buy-in for this?
Sure. So I think the important thing for folks to realize is that events are not meant to be a standalone or performative notion
Mhm.
for the communities or for organizations. It has to be lock armed with the systemic change that's happening in all of the moments of the employee cycle. So, from the moment that they are recruited to career progression, and then even how they leave a company. And so, if we're doing the work in all those spaces, then those events feel like an add on and an integral part of the overall investment that we're taking for employees, and not just this shiny event that happens. I think the other piece too is, when you have an event, it shouldn't be, all right, see you in 364 days, right? I think it's really important to say, okay, this is a moment in time. This is investing resources, financial, time, all of these things. And then what? What's the next part? And so, what I think we've done extremely well within this body of work is create. Sort of standing leadership teams, what we call ambassadors, that represent each of our offices across the US and even now global, so that they can continue the connection, continue the community building on a local office basis. Again, with the space where we're in hybrid and virtual and trying to figure that out, has been an interesting challenge that we've taken on. But the important piece is that commitment to continue the drumbeat of engagement, the drumbeat of listening and feedback, and meeting the moment for where communities are, so that it's not just this annual event that they look forward to with silence in between.
So I want to turn to you now, Becky. you are with Raymond, and there you chair the financial service, it's a financial service firm, and you chair the Women's Initiative Network Council, in addition to being the director of Total Rewards. Um, the benefits that you won are really, really generous. It's free counseling sessions, on-call pre and postnatal coaching, and elder care consulting. Um, how did you persuade the company to do this?
I think similar to my co-panelists, it's back to connecting those dots for leaders between what the people in your organization or potential future employees will value as far as benefits go and what their families will value, but then also what are those positive business outcomes that also are intertwined. So many things are interconnected. I think it's really important that when you're trying to gain that buy-in, you're really connecting those dots via feedback